In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious. And never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey everyone, how you doing tonight? Welcome to Surviving Together in our SAS community here. We're all about a safe space for sexual assault and other trauma survivors to connect and heal together. Let's see who we've got tonight. Shannon, good to see you. You didn't get a notification. Aw. Crystal got a notification. Hey Janet, how you doing? Good to see you, Crystal. You're gonna like something I have tonight, Crystal. And Deidre, good to see you. Did you notice it is not my office? I am actually, a friend of mine is traveling and he is in town from DC, and we're gonna have dinner after this, after the live. So I'm doing the live from his hotel room while he is off doing company things, and I get to just enjoy the space. It is nice. They do have filtered water right down the hall, so good on that. But they have no desk. I don't understand. They have a big dresser, like a really big dresser, and no desk. No need for the dresser. They got dresser drawers in the other place, and the other things. I don't know. Any hoosers, we are going to be talking more about ADHD today. So I apologize. I did not bring my other camera with me today, so I'm having to do with my laptop audio and video. So I know the picture is not going to be quite as crisp, quite as close as we're used to, but hopefully the volume will come through okay. And let's get started. Anybody got anything to say? Sorry, guys, my hands are a little bit cold. I am not doing a defensive posture. I absolutely promise. I will say that, along with the rest of the world, very happy to hear that Mr. Sean Combs is in custody and will probably stay there for a really long time. So we're very happy on that. It is going to be extremely interesting to see what comes out of all of this. They've had all of his tapes for a while, and I bet the FBI's gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb. They know everybody who's been there, every person he's got dirt on. It'll be really interesting. Oh, I actually have a question for you guys, SAS community. Do you know, I did not watch the video, which is why I'm asking, anybody know what the update on Q is from the lifeboat? I just saw the title and I did not get a chance to watch the show. Who is this guy? Crystal, are you joking with me or not? Sean Combs, otherwise known as P. Diddy. You got the notification now. Woohoo! You know, that'll happen to me sometimes. Something will start and then it'll be like, you're live. And I'm like, wow, thanks for letting me know. I'm already here, but yes, P. Diddy, King of Hip Hop. He Oh, no, you're not. You don't listen to news. He was big in the 90s, right? Really big in the 90s. Came just a huge star and very close with Beyonce and her husband Jay-Z. Jay-Z's like his best friend or something. So a lot of noise, wondering about what's going to happen with the Carters. Are they involved in this somehow? There's been, rumors being spread about that. There's rumors being spread about, Jennifer Lopez, that there's, evidence that they could find that um, that he was that that she did bring a gun into the what was it? That was back in the 90s too. But she smuggled a gun into a club for Combs. And did somebody was somebody died that day, right? There was a shooting, I thought. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure the Carters are up to their eyeballs in lawyers and have been since the raid, trying to figure out how to protect themselves, trying to rack their brains as to what could be on there. How many times were we on video about this, that, or the other thing? It's going to be very, very interesting to see the fallout from this. I did listen to a little bit of commentary on this because I wanted to know, how is he going to fare in the prison system? I mean, he's P. Diddy, right? He, as far as we know now, he himself is not being accused of sleeping with any underage girls or guys. So there's nothing underage that's come out yet. He's definitely been accused of sex trafficking, and I'm sure that we'll get more information on the ages of the people who were sex trafficked. Yeah, he'll be segregated for sure, but like we've seen happen, with the pedos, they're separated, but there's times where they've got to walk the same hallway as other people do. If somebody wants to get to them, they're going to get to them, and if he's found guilty, because it's a RICO statute, a racketeering statute that they're going after him on, he loses everything. I mean, everything that could possibly be related to any of his crimes, any of the profits from that, things that he could have bought. So, I mean, he's in a world of hurt. I mean, everything goes pretty much. All of his houses, his planes, all of his possessions. This will be interesting. He's got 100 some odd lawsuits against him, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, somebody got to Epstein, right? Because they wanted to, and he's being made out to be, the same as a Jeffrey Epstein. Now, whether that means he was also working for the government in some sort of capacity, don't know. But it'll be interesting to find out, won't it? Wouldn't it be interesting if you did all this stuff all these years for the FBI, only to have something happen, and so they just came around and shut you down? And basically, I mean, you're the scapegoat for all of it. That would so suck. Yeah, I'd be terrified of the Epstein effect. If somebody wants him dead enough, he'll be dead. But based on what we have right now, I don't know. We don't have a lot of the details. So much stuff is I'm sure gonna be coming out in the coming weeks and leaked to the media, I'm positive. But give it up for Cassie, Cassandra. What was her last name? Is Sean Combs's ex-girlfriend. She filed one of the first lawsuits, I believe, against him, alleging a lot of things. And it was when this came out that the FBI stood up and took notice and said, what's going on over here? They saw these things, and he, within 24 hours, he'd settled with her. Within 24 hours of the lawsuit being filed, he'd settled. I bet, hoping against hope that nobody would catch wind of the fact that she filed a lawsuit. Q is getting a hearing. Wow. Well, good to hear. Good to hear. He has a chance due to ineffective assistance of counsel. Interesting. I'm interested on this from a legal standpoint, because this must mean that he has not exhausted all of his appeals. He would have had the chance to appeal to the appellate court and the Supreme Court, and then also a writ of habeas corpus would have been his last gasp at trying to get out. So this is interesting, very interesting. I'll be very curious to follow that. I'm sure that the lifeboat will let us know. And yeah, J-Lo smuggled the gun in, and wasn't somebody shot at that episode? Or that night that she smuggled the gun in? I thought that was the big whoop-de-doo about it, was because somebody ended up getting shot. But he's got possibly 8 bodies that they think he could be linked to, which is really interesting. And what I did not know is that they found guns in his house with the serial numbers scratched off. Why? Criminals scratch off the serial numbers so you can't trace them. No law-abiding citizen has any reason to scratch those numbers off. So it's very, very, very interesting. There was a shooting that night. J-Lo smugged in. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I don't know how people don't think that everything is being videotaped. I assume no matter where I am, save for the safety of my home, I'm being videotaped. That you just have to. And especially if you're going to big parties like this, it doesn't sound like it was uncommon knowledge that Combs had cameras all throughout everything. Especially if you're going to somebody who's, wealthy and famous, just from a security standpoint, it would behoove that person to have a security system, security cameras, right? Excuse me. So I don't see why people don't think. But again, a lot of the stuff was in the 90s. This is in the 90s and the earlier 2000s. I know he's been having, I don't know, when's the last time he had a freak off? I don't know if they've been happening right up to the current day, or right, 1,000 bottles of baby oil, like that they took from his place. It really, really weird stuff. Yeah, I did hear he's not a really big guy, Shannon. It'll be real interesting to see how will the Black community react to him being in there. I don't know. That's definitely not my forte. The little bit of dabbling I did in regards to this seems to think that prison might not be too terrible for him, in regards to how his crimes are viewed. This is going to be interesting. Very interesting. Oh, hi, Be Real. I didn't even look at the name. Just saw the 1,000 bottles of baby oil, which, that just has to stop you anytime you see that, right? But welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, I'm not so sure on Jay-Z either. You know, I've heard two sides of the coin. I've heard that, their marriage is really just one of convenience, that they got together early and now they're both kind of doing their separate things, but within the marriage. I've heard that he basically controls her. He definitely can seem like he could be a very controlling person. And this is just based on, public persona type of thing. So who knows? But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see, are you going to see any of these people who have been brought up in streams before, like Justin Bieber and some of these other artists? Are they going to be required to testify? Have they been interviewed? I don't know. People were saying that he wasn't as bad as Maxwell or Epstein. What kind of defense is that? Yeah, it precisely. I mean, they were procuring underage girls knowingly for his purposes. I have not read the indictment, so I don't know what all the bases of the sex trafficking is. Like I said, I don't know all of its adult or if there were any kids at the time. So we'll have to see. Georgie, it might be hard getting the male victims to disclose. However, depending on what's going on, I think you may find some people step up. This is a big enough case, and if their conscience gets to them, and I say, we've got a chance to put this guy away. If I don't do this, somebody else, I can't just leave to somebody else. I won't do it. Let's let somebody else do it. So we'll have to see. Tommy said that Q had exhausted his appeals, but they came up with this one. Huh. Wow. Well, now I'm really curious. I think I might have to watch that now because I'm stumped. Legally, I am stumped. I'll be very curious to see what they have as to his reason why that. Yeah, Be Real. It could get very ugly with this P. Diddy case. We'll just have to see, what happens. It's, some of the things that we've already learned, we've kind of gone, what? What? And this is a total aside, total really kind of squirrel moment, but I was listening to some true crime stuff earlier this week, and there was a guy who was in prison for stealing a car. Okay. And he did steal the car. Flat out, he stole the car. The car belonged to this person's, the father of the person the guy was with. The guy was a serial killer. And the only reason that the guy who stole the car got away and wasn't killed was because the car got stuck in the mud. Another driver came around. They got it all unstuck. And while the killer was talking with the other driver, this guy took off in the car. And he had been given Valium just a little bit ago. And he said the next thing he remembers was waking up in an accident. I think I don't remember where he was, but it was some weird space. And he told all this to the cops, and the cops totally didn't believe him. They're like, yeah, right. Okie dokie. Guess what? Years later, and what that was what I wanted to do, was track down that guy. And I wanted to, did he get out of jail then? Did the police apologize? What happened? And yeah, that was really, I'm like, man, that's gotta suck. Years later, they come back, hi, man, you were right. I'm like, durr. Plus, I wonder how many, I don't think I finished listening to that podcast. I don't know how many bodies were after him. It would really, really bite. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the one thing that very well could get Sean in trouble in jail is how much he may be snitching on others. So you do get the feeling that he would do just about anything to save his hide, don't you? I mean, it just, to me, anybody who would go to these lengths to have tapes everywhere, these cameras, and keeping the tapes, and that's a slippery sucker. DeAudrey, this is something that I was noticing when I was going through a few things, is that female teachers abusing young students, it does become more prevalent. It does seem to become more prevalent, right? And you wonder, is it more prevalent, or is it, as you're saying, more males are disclosing? I hope it's the latter. I hope it's that more males are disclosing these days. It's so much easier for people to connect and hook up with smartphones and whatnot. So I have no idea what the rate was. It would be interesting to see people from the 50s and 60s come forward and see what was happening to them. I would be so interested to see if this is really something that has been going on all the time and we just didn't know. So, I don't know. Usher definitely would be one with the P. Diddy case that they would have interviewed, I would think. He had such a close relationship with him for so long that you would definitely think. So, guys, this chair is not the most conducive to sitting up straight, so I apologize. It is purposely angled. Um, yeah, it can be a very controversial topic, be real, when females are labeled the predator when they're the abusers. But it's, we did a whole live on this about female essayers, because they exist, and they exist of kids and of adults, male and female. And I got to give it to what some of those men have gone through to be able to put some of these women away, to strive to be believed. No worries, Shannon. Yeah, nobody really knows everything right now. And so I'm just repeating what I had heard from some sources on the internet. You're repeating what you've heard. I'm sure a lot more information will come out in the coming weeks and months, obviously. 2025 is going to be a very interesting year in terms of that case, for sure. The P. Diddy case. I wanted to, for today, okay, Saturday, I want to get into tips and tricks of things to do for ADHD to help you get along with your brain, right? Tonight, in prepping for Saturday, I came across a bunch of stuff that I guess just gave me pause when I was looking at the whole issue. And I decided, you know what, we're going to do kind of an autism part two, ADHD and trauma kind of part two. And just, these are just some interesting things that I picked up. And obviously, in part, some of it's interesting because of me and my symptoms, like I talked about last week, where I didn't have anything as a child. I mean, I was never even considered for testing, and it wasn't anything that I definitely wasn't a hyperactive child. You know, just kind of a loner, stayed to myself type of person. And what I didn't know is everybody else in the world know this but me. There are actually 3 different types of ADHD. And the reason I didn't know this was because of when they combined ADD and ADHD, I think, don't quote me on this, I think that's when they came up with these 3 different types. So you've got hyperactivity, impulsiveness or impulsivity, inattentive, and combined. So those are your 3 types. So one's more focused on, the HD aspect, and one's more on the AD aspect. So the inattentive is what used to be classified more as just ADD, regular ADD. Take out the hyperactivity aspect of it. And I was really interested in this because the inattentive person who has ADHD is typified by struggling to maintain focus, a lack of energy, trouble following detailed instructions. That's just kind of it in a nutshell. It's statistically more common in females, especially the female children, and it's more common in adults. So the adults that they're seeing more often than not are falling into this category. The ones that they're just having being diagnosed for the first time as an adult. Okay. Crystal, you've heard that the hyper can also mean hyper focused on tasks. Interesting. My research was just, and again, because I did not do a deep dive into this, so this was just just a surface view of things. So that very well could be the case. The hyperactive, impulsive type of ADHD is typified by restlessness, fidgety, talking a lot and fast, without a filter. So inappropriate comments, saying something before you think about what you're saying. Trouble with quiet and relaxing activities, so mindfulness, just being in a library, something like that, it's really going to be difficult for them. Impulse purchasing, general impatience, and that was it. I did a little bit more of a deep dive into the inattentive because, for one, that is what more adults are, and 2, more females have it. And I am an adult female, and more specifically, a person who, if I do truly have ADHD, because I have not been officially diagnosed, but if I do, it would have been adult onset, as far as we know. I guess I would really have to talk to a therapist for a while to see if he or she could glean anything out of my childhood that they would actually say, no, those were ADHD symptoms. We just didn't really realize at the time, or would ADD type of symptoms, because I certainly didn't have the hyperactivity. Hyper-focused, I can be, to the exclusion of other things, but they're always hyper-focused on tasks that are unnecessary. So it's usually not being hyper-focused on my work, okay? So it's something totally unrelated, like at reading, reading something for pleasure. The inattentiveness, so there's another video that I listened to with this psychologist, and she really went through the inattentiveness and talking about how these things manifest in our everyday lives. And the more she talked, the more I kind of went, yeah, I think maybe. This is a good question. A good question, Janet. You said your daughters were hyper focused on tasks they were passionate about. Where is the border on normal focus and ADHD hyperfocus? Yeah, it's a level of degree. It's simply a level of degree, and that has to be teased out by a mental health professional. There's no magic line. Normally with mental health conditions, they'll say that it's when it becomes a problem, right? So X, Y, and Z, you may have depressive symptoms, but if you're still operating through your daily life and your normal routine, and you're still operating to the same level at work, and nothing's really changed in terms of how you manage your daily life, they're not going to, you may have depressive symptoms, but they're not going to probably diagnose you with depression. So Janet, this is another comment that a lot of people were talking about when I was doing the research is, procrastination or ADHD, simply wanting to avoid adulting or ADHD, autism or ADHD, BPD or ADHD, they're just CPD or, so trauma, childhood trauma and ADHD. And I was doing some of the research, there was some that came up that said that it was believed. Let me back up. The studies that they did show a correlation in terms of people who are diagnosed as with adult ADHD tended to have childhood trauma. So more of them had childhood trauma than not. Also, the ones who did have trauma, usually their ADHD was worse. I think for that one they were talking in kids though, for it being worse. Yeah, PTSD and CPTSD are more likely to have ADHD. It was a 2018 study done by a gentleman named Paul Frewen, Frewen, called Lifetime Traumatic Stressors and Adverse Childhood Experiences. And it found that adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, or trauma in utero had led to later ADHD symptoms. They're not willing to put a causation on it yet. And I say yet because I'm still wondering, the jury's still out as to whether there's a trauma and ADHD cause and effect relationship. We know trauma can change your brain, right? It changes the neural pathways. So on our most basic level, trauma changes us. So why can't those changes be something that lead to these ADHD symptoms? I don't see it as that far stretched. You know, my mental breakdown is what I would relate as the big event that preceded what I would consider ADHD symptoms. And that was when I was 40. And I was speaking with another sub, Shannon, and I'm calling you out only because you're speaking about it here, that your trauma has happened as an adult and you can't concentrate like you used to. I really think that as the studies go on, they're going to find more of a reason to put a causational link between the two, or at least that the way in which trauma changes the brain can make it highly likely that you will develop ADHD. Maybe there'll be some guidelines if this, that, or the other happens too, or something like that. But I don't see it as so far-fetched. Crystal, they didn't say in terms of what kind of trauma in utero, but my guess would be anything physical or any toxins that the baby were to intake. Oh, wow. One of your longtime friends, DeAudrey, was diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And said that absolutely no one will be surprised. I can say that I was the one who was surprised when it was my friend who said, "You're ADHD." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I mean, I'm so not the typical ADHD person, or so I thought, because I have a vision in my brain of an ADHD kid." And they did say that how ADHD presents itself in adults is definitely different than it is in a kid, or can be vastly different. Let me put it this way, can be vastly different. I think they said there's an 85% chance that if you had ADHD as a child, that it would go into adolescence, at least, if not into adulthood. So my friend who's always had ADHD, no surprise that he still has it, and it still runs rampant in his life. And again, it's one of those things where it interferes with his ability to operate, right? Because so many things going through his mind, and just the inability to concentrate and flipping to one thing to another, and so you're not completing this task or that task. So with this, one lady started saying about the inattentive, and start listening to this. Any of you guys who think you may have ADHD as an adult, these were 9 symptoms she listed as a person, an adult with inattentive ADHD. 1, makes careless mistakes and lacks an attention to detail. I can tell you I do that. And it's not for want of, usually I'm either rushing through it, or I'm just not paying as much attention to the details as I really should be. I give them a little bit of short shrift. which in contrast to me before then, anybody who knew me, I mean, we're going to go through this and I'm going to go, not me before, not me before, not me before, just difficulty maintaining attention never was a problem for me before. Does not seem to listen when talked to directly, never was a problem for me before. I was always present. I could be present for a conversation. My mind wouldn't wander off into some other thing. And I went, huh, what did you just say? I'm sorry. I just was thinking about something else because something else popped in my head and my brain thought that was more interesting, I guess, to be listening to than to actually be listening to you. Fails to follow through on tasks or decisions. Guilty. Especially decisions that say, yeah, let's do this, or yes, I'll do that. Something always seems to either come up in the way or I don't feel like it anymore. And that's where the lack of energy, I think, comes in. Lack of energy, lack of interest type of thing. Poor organization, another one. I was the most organized person you'd ever met. Seriously. But I definitely do not have that same organization now. It's too overwhelming to me. Well, everything was overwhelming. So the filing suffered and suffered and suffered and suffered to the point where it is now I just want to box everything up and put it in the storage unit and come back in 7 years and then throw it all in the garbage or have a bonfire. Not sure which. Because it's such a monumental project to me at this point. But I have to do it because there are papers in there somewhere that I need. There's a couple of file folders that are missing of mine that I know I wouldn't have thrown away, and I know nobody else would have had them or gotten access to them. So they're probably around somewhere, but Lord only knows. So I'm gonna have to go through the stuff and look at it. But I avoid tasks that require sustained mental effort. Well, that would be part of my filing thing. But I do. There's certain things topics that I could talk about on here. Maybe something that looks interesting that I want to read or listen to, but I just am like, I'm really gonna have to think on that. And I don't think I'm gonna put that effort into it. And so I can totally relate to that one too. Loses things needed for important activities. Ever set your phone down and can't remember where you put it? This happens to me on a daily basis. It's constant. Do you lose your keys? Do you not have your uniform for your volunteer work that you do? Do you not, anything like that? And to me, it is constant. Constantly, things that were in my hand will no longer be in my hand, and I will have absolutely zero idea where it is. Oh my gosh, Janet, your daughter went to the airport for a flight and had no ID. Oh my. Yikes, that would really suck. All right, two more. Easily distracted with unrelated thoughts. Yes, but not as much as the other ones for me on this one. That was when she went a month ago. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, brother. Well, I'm glad she still made it over. That's for certain. Forgetful with daily activities. Yep. Did I brush my teeth this morning? Did I put on deodorant? Yeah, I think so. But not remembering these things, like not remembering if you did them, or just like blowing through your day if something's not, a habit. If you haven't made it a habit in terms of like routine, you do it at the same time every day type of thing. It is easy to forget those things. Oh crap, I forgot to walk the dog, or I had that appointment, um, and I totally missed that because I didn't write it down. Poor organizational skills um, lead you to forget something. There's a couple of things that I wanted to mention with this. And one is, and I mentioned it a little bit before, is there's still this disagreement as to whether or not adult onset ADHD is a real thing, or whether you always had the symptoms from childhood, or whether you don't really have ADHD, but you have something else. And it's just your symptoms are similar to ADHD. And so either you had gotten diagnosed with it wrongly, or in terms of diagnosing you now, they're just saying, well, you don't actually have it. You have other things that are related to it. Because there's a lot of overlap, as we talked last week, a lot of overlap with ADHD and other mental health conditions, right? And even, um, especially with childhood trauma. And I want to show you a chart that um, talks about this. And Crystal, you are going to laugh at this. Because after last week's show, when I put up that bubble chart, Crystal sent me a chart with a similar thing that was being done with some other mental health conditions. And then I found this one. Hang on a second. Let me share my screen with you.
For all of them, of course, because that's a concept.
You don't need to see. You don't need to hear it. You just need to see it. Okay. I'm going to take myself out of here so we can see it a little bit easy. I don't know how to do this to get rid of. Oh, yes, I do. Wait a minute. I'm just going to make this a full screen. Ah. Okay. So I can't take him out because he's in it. But so here we have CPTSD. We've got ADHD. We've got autism. We've got BPD. And at least according to this gentleman, he looked at all of these and looked at all of these, the symptoms that were with them, and there was a section that overlapped. And what did the overlap look like? Well, it looked like this. So saying the overlap between all of these is oversensitive and reactive nervous system, which leads to perceiving oneself as being different or wrong, which is giving you your negative core beliefs and negative identity. You don't feel like you fit in anywhere, and you feel like you're different and you're weird, and you get all of those ants tromping through your head. This puts you at higher risk of victimization, and all of this can lead to unstable and insecure relationships, which is, we've all learned, connection is huge. Connection is the key, because if you don't have good support, it's really difficult to navigate through life in a positive, effective manner, I think. So I was reading, catching up on some comments today, guys. Shannon, this is why I started keeping deodorant in the car, because I can never remember if I put on deodorant. I mean, it's such a simple, silly thing, right? I mean, you get out of the shower, I put my lotion on, I put deodorant on. But for the life of me, if I go later on sometimes to remember, did I do that? I'm like, I can't quite remember. And my armpits aren't giving me any hints. Well, you don't smell good, but you don't smell bad. So I don't know what it did. I don't know what's happening. You know, I am positive that I did not have ADHD or even ADD when I was a kid, because I could focus on anything I wanted to. I was extremely good in school. I was extremely good at homework. I had no problem having attention to detail. I was uber organized. I didn't mind tasks that required a lot of mental effort. My daily stuff was down pat. I mean, just anything that you're looking at with these, I just didn't. They weren't part of my life as a kid, and I had childhood trauma. I have CPTSD, guys, but none of this ADHD stuff for me hits home as being for when I was a kid. None of it. The only time this stuff comes out is in the last 10 years. So since my mental break. How that happens, how it's related, how I can now be one thing when before I was another, I don't know, but for me, it makes a lot of sense, because this mental break was really like the break between my pre and after person. I just said to my friend the other day, I wish you had known me like 20 years ago. I think you really would have liked me. And what I meant by that was the person I was 20 years ago was this uber confident woman who I would have just graduated law school then. I was uber focused on my taekwondo, which is what I did in my off time. That was my passion, along with my 2 St. Bernards that I had, my dogs. And I was on top of the world. I really was. I had a job that I loved. And there was never anything that I could say up until I was 40, up until that break, where these things would have held true. So I'll be interested to see in another 5 years, where the studies have come. Have they has it really become accepted that there is adult onset ADHD when there is trauma? Now, is there adult onset ADHD without the presence of a trauma precursor? I don't know. That would be another interesting question to address. But certainly, if they're acknowledging childhood trauma, that there could be a link between childhood trauma and ADHD, I do not see why there would be a difference between having adult trauma and then still having a link to ADHD. To me, it doesn't make sense to have one and not the other. It'd be interesting just to talk to some more people like this who have adult ADHD. Did you have any symptoms as a kid, or do you feel that this is truly an adult onset? Because the jury's out in the psychology field. There are some people who are dead set against this idea of adult onset. So we'll see what becomes of that. You know, I'm very, very curious to know. So in terms of, I did go. So in terms of just ADHD and its link to trauma or to autism or to BPD, I think, you know, as this chart showed, there's so many things that are unique to that particular condition, but yet there's so much overlap. And as we looked last week between just trauma and ADHD, and you saw the huge overlap that there is there. And, you know, now they're doing these, you know, they're doing more studies and more comparisons, ADHD and autism, which I hear is very common, ADHD and BPD, which I do not know how common that is, BPD being borderline personality disorder. I'm really starting down this rabbit hole because I'm feeling like I fall more and more into it, and that leads me to really having to reassess. I don't even say reassess, taking an assessment, a detailed look at my life, at my daily thoughts, at my daily decisions, how I do things, and really categorizing them. And I'm trying to notice things as I go through my day to see, is this something reflective of an ADHD symptom? You know, can I see this in my daily life? And I'm trying to be cognizant of it to see it. But I'll tell you, I don't even notice it half the time. So it's not until my roommate is with me and he'll point out things sometimes. And I'm like, I did what? And he's like, yeah, you just did this or you said that or whatever. And I'm like, I did? I don't remember that. And it could have been 5 minutes ago. And I've totally already forgotten about the conversation or remember the conversation, but I forgot what I said in it. And then we say, you said this. I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, did I? I don't think I did, but maybe, because I don't know. You know, I lose track of things I say all the time. And that is incredibly frustrating for me because I was never one to forget things. I was the person who was so good at gift giving because we could have had a conversation 6 months before your birthday, and you mentioned something in that, just like as in a passing aside. And I took that and I stored it away and said, okay, you know, unless something better comes up, that's what I'm gonna get you for your birthday, or just store it away as a possibility. I can't do that anymore, not unless I write it down. I can't remember like I used to. And that bothers me so much. Probably out of anything else, that's what bothers me the most. I do not like being forgetful. I don't like not being able to remember what I said or when I said it or when I did something. Very, very disorienting, very disheartening. Oh, that's interesting, Crystal. So if you guys don't know, Crystal has BPD, and so she says that it's easier to ask people if they know anyone with autism, and if they do, you tell them BPD is very similar in the ways it shows up. It's helped people to understand you better. That's wonderful. You know, this is true too, Janet. Not remembering just used to be, you know, why do they call them senior moments? Because it's normal to forget as we age, right? But what is a normal amount? That I have no clue. But I have to say, I do not think that what I am experiencing could be classified as just normal. Unless I've got dementia, or something that I have something that's affecting my memory. But other than things that I've told you and we've talked about, I don't know why that would be. So it's curious. And then for a female, you add menopause into the mix with the mood swings that can cause, with the irritability issues and the inattentiveness and the lack of focus and all these other things that you're looking at these charts and going, oh, that one has a 2. Oh, that one has that one too, huh? Yeah, that has that one. Hi, Hugs for Humanity. How you doing today? BPD is borderline personality disorder. BP is bipolar. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that that's what they did for bipolar. Yeah. When I looked at some of the things that were going on for me, and let's just take recently, let's take the last week. I don't know if these things are caused by menopause, these newer ADHD, newer-ish ADHD symptoms, getting older, changing my meds. So I'm weaning off one of my antidepressants. And I did have a couple of days where I just didn't feel happy. And I wouldn't say I felt depressed, because myself, I just felt like I was just motoring through the day, not a good feeling, not bad, but definitely just not a good feeling, right? And I had some good news, and I found it hard to be happy. It was like I wanted to jump for joy and celebrate so much, and I wanted to be happy. And it was like there was this weight just pushing down, going, nope, can't be happy, can't let those happy feelings out, don't do it. So it's like they were right here, but I couldn't let them out. I was like, I felt kind of happy, but not like that exuberant that I would have liked to. So, and it could be a combination of all of that, Crystal. You're right, exactly. And that's why I ended last week's live with, you know what, regardless, it's the symptoms we have to deal with, right? Diagnoses are important. They can be critical for knowing how to approach a mental condition. But I think when you get down to it, and if you're dealing with something where, like me, I could have 4 different, options. I mean, I have to throw my hands up or throw a knife at the wall and find where it lands to see, which one it is. I don't know that even a concentrated effort to knock things out and say, nope, it's not that, nope, it's not that, nope, it's not that. I don't even know that would help. I'd have to keep everything the same, why we did this. And I'm not willing to stop my decrease on my medication. I really want to get off of it, and I want to see what I see without the depression medication. How is things? Because here was another thing that was mentioned that really gave me pause. And the question was, is it ADHD or misdiagnosed? Oh, sorry, I should say, is it misdiagnosed anxiety and depression when you should have been diagnosed with ADHD? Because depression and anxiety are symptoms of ADHD, can be. There's these huge lists of symptoms for ADHD, right? And there's ones for the hyper impulsive, there's ones for the inattentive. And just because you say you fall in the inattentive, so that's where most of your stuff comes from, because you have to have 5 or more of the symptoms if you're over 17, 6 or more if you're younger than 17, according to the DSM, the psychology manual. But just because you have most of yours in one category doesn't mean you can't have ones from, the other category. And it could mean you have symptoms that aren't in either category because they're unique to you. As they're recognizing now, ADHD does present itself differently in everybody, but there are some core commonalities. And so that's what we talk about when we talk about these are the symptoms of ADHD. We're talking about these are the most common symptoms that they can come up with. But it by no means means that is the only things that you can have. And I think people, when they look at these lists, they get a little stuck into that and go, oh, this is what CPTSD is. This is what autism is, and this is what ADHD is. But it's like, wait a minute, I've got this and that and the other. So do I have all 3? Do I have none? Do I have something totally different? I'm just going to try and deal with the symptoms at this point. Yeah, my meds. The issue with my meds, we're doing everything right in terms of knocking down. I haven't been down for more than a day in a row so far, so I consider that a plus. If I have a week where I have many more days that I'm feeling off than not, then that's definitely a time of going back to my doctor and saying, "Yes, that last step down, I think we need to backtrack a little bit, add a little bit of that back in, maybe stay on that for a little bit longer before we reduce to the next step." This I did learn with my fentanyl step down, that it can be extremely important that you step down, and wee baby steps sometimes are needed. It all depends on how your body is going to take it. I mean, my fentanyl, it was 25 milligrams each time, right? There's no difference, 25, 25, 25. But that second 25 drop, that hurt. Those 3 months getting over that was a rough ride. One I would not wish on anyone. So I'm real curious now of myself to take stock and say, my depression, my anxiety that I was diagnosed with, anxiety much later in life, but the depression, 25-ish. And so I'm really having to take stock and write down, just everything I can remember. What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What was going on when I got that initial depression diagnosis? And trying to see, are there any similarities between what was going on and the ADHD, especially the inattentive ADHD? And again, I don't see it. So I think my depression diagnosis was a valid depression diagnosis. But I found it very interesting that the psychologist thought to note that there definitely could be people out there with ADHD who are misdiagnosed as having depression and or anxiety. And that definitely affects treatment because it's totally different. If you're going medication route, it's totally different medication that you're going to take for depression versus anxiety versus ADHD. And I just I don't know. This one I'm really kind of interested to do some more research into that one. Because those are definitely symptoms that they have in common with trauma, right? Depression and anxiety definitely comes straight from trauma. So if you've got somebody who's really a therapist who's looking at you and is really just dealing with what is current in your life, they very well could miss some important things because of what has gone on in your past and how that might be related to the symptoms that you're having today. And so if your therapist isn't delving deep enough, they're not getting the full picture of what's gone on for you, what may have led to this latest chapter in your life as to how you're feeling and why your brain's thinking certain things. And I know I missed a lot of the conversation, guys, and I am sorry for that. Shannon, I am so sorry that you're not feeling the greatest lately. Let's throw some ones up there for Shannon and anybody else who needs them out there, guys, for whatever reason that you need it for. Hey, Rick, yes, typo error is your middle name. That is very true. So I did want to say that we are going to have a little mini celebration. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, the chair's actually moving on that. I know the lighting's not the greatest, but I'm working with what I got here. Guys, we have hit over 1,500 watch hours and 202 subscribers. Past that 200 mark, I am so thrilled. We're up 100 watch hours over the course of a week. That's just huge. We still got a ways to go because we've only got 6 more months to get 1,800 subscribers. But I have a feeling it may not happen this my first year in operation. And if it doesn't, that's okay. That's okay. As soon as we hit it, we'll hit it, and that'll be all right. I'm actually more excited about the watch hours just because of how many people are actually in our community, which means there's either a lot of people out there who are watching, aren't giving likes, aren't subscribing, but they're watching for a significant amount of time. Or at least they're watching, half hour of like almost every video that's put out. So either way, the exposure is getting there. So I'm just thrilled. Got a lot of ideas on the table, some things that I want to do in addition to these videos that I've been talking about doing. I've really been kind of sketching some things out, so we'll see. We'll see. It'll be a very interesting rest of the year. And I'm hoping to put some things into place by the end of the year. And then we'll be going into next year and seeing how it goes. I hope it is helping people, Rick. I really do. You know, that's the total goal for this. And even if we have a day like we're going to have in a couple weeks where all we're doing is talking silliness, to me, those days are needed just as much as these days are when we're talking about serious subjects. Because healing, as we discovered not too many videos ago, laughter is a wonderful way to heal, wonderful way to release stress, calm your system, re-engage your parasympathetic nervous system, calm down, and just let loose, be able to laugh. So we're definitely, I think it's like October 5th is that Saturday, the first Saturday of October. That is going to be when we're going to do it, our laugh day. So I think we're going to make that the first Saturday of every month will be our laugh day. So we'll start off the month on a good high note. So I think that is, I think that'll be good. That'll be a good way to remember it too, for me anyway, for me. I wanted to mention something that I came across only because I know that substance abuse is something that a lot of us have suffered from. And with the overlap of CPTSD and ADHD, I think what I'm going to talk about in terms of substance abuse is going to be a surprise to no one who has had it because it developed out of trauma. You're going to see the same types of things. So people with ADHD are more likely to develop substance abuse. And it's for several different reasons. One is the issue of instant gratification. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that little test they'll do with kids and say, I'll give you one marshmallow now, or if when I come back in the room in a few minutes, that marshmallow's still here, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. So they either eat the marshmallow that's in front of them, or they wait until the guy comes back and they'll get 2 of them. Now, if they wait, that's delayed gratification. People with ADHD are not good at delayed gratification. Their brain won't wait that time. Their brain is all about instant gratification. Give me that dopamine rush. And there's very much an intolerance of having to wait for anything like that. There's also, and the reason for that, the reason they want to get that dopamine hit is because people with ADHD, they found, have an impaired dopamine function, which means their baseline is lower dopamine than most people, than the average person would have. So they want those dopamine rushes, right? To feel better. The problem is that initially when you get into drugs, it gives you that dopamine rush that you need, right? But then, like a lot of medications, which this is not medication per se, because I don't know what kind of substance you're abusing. However, there's going to be a tolerance that you build up to whatever you're taking at whatever level you're taking. So you have to take more and more of it to get that same dopamine hit, to get that same high, to get that same good feeling that you did in the beginning when you just started, and very little of whatever substance you were using was able to give you that hit. And the reason that this is that this happens, particularly with the ADHD, what happens with the ADHD is that the part of the brain that is affected by the substance abuse actually changes from one area to another. And that area then will actually suppress the dopamine release. So it decreases the amount of dopamine you have in your system. So as you've got that tolerance, and as you're increasing the amount, let's just take drinking. You're increasing the amount you're drinking to try and get that same dopamine hit. When you reach this tolerance level, your brain, it switches from where it had been giving you joy, it switches to a different part deep inside your brain. And then as you have those drinks, it actually decreases your dopamine. So it's not releasing it. And so you're drinking more and more and more and more, trying to get that hit. But your brain is actually doing the opposite. They think about it as your internal warning system or whatever, that, hey, you need to stop it. If you quit, they find that your dopamine levels will return back to where they were. They'll still be on the low side for them, but they're not going to be like as depressed as they were. So you get this dopamine reset that happens when people get sober. Because of that dopamine reset, you can find that some people then, if they relapse, if it's been long enough and they've had the chance for their brain to do this reset, they relapse and they take a little bit and they're like, ooh, I'm getting that rush. I'm getting that same rush I used to when I first started doing these drugs. But the brain, if it's only been a little bit, its neuroplasticity hasn't been able to break off those other pathways. And those other pathways are still somewhat viable. So it can be very easy to fall into that old pattern, because your body can easily acclimate to that higher level because it was used to taking that. And so when you're doing it again, with the brain's like, oh, this is old hat, we know what's going to happen here, and it just processes it through. Pain meds made you sick, Rick? Can't do them? Yeah, it depends on what the pain meds are. Shannon, I've never had are you saying antidepressants that wake you up? Yeah, this was the thing I learned about Adderall, Shannon, and how Adderall is a stimulant. So how does that work in somebody with ADHD? You're giving a stimulant to a hyperactive person. This makes no sense. Well, what happens is, hang on, because I think I wrote this down somewhere because I was really interested in it. Maybe I didn't. I'm just gonna make noise. And I wrote it myself. So what it does is it stimulates the part of your brain, the more executive functionings parts of your brain that allow yourself to be able to say, other thoughts, hit the road. Yes, we want to go out and take a walk. Yes, we want to go get a snack, but we can't. No. So it stimulates the part of your brain that can say no to other parts of your brain. So if that makes sense. Because I wondered the same thing. Caffeine calms you down, huh? See? That's why I go and say, just because one drug did something to one person doesn't mean the other person's going to have the same side effect, right? And depending on your body and how you metabolize certain things, certain drugs can work for you. Certain drugs can work opposite the way they were intended to. I've had that happen to me before. The doctor's like, no. I'm like, yeah. Like, were you with me all day? Because I certainly was. I had something where, I don't remember what it was. See, this is the memory thing. I used to be able to boom, 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 every single thing. There's something I came in and I said it's had this side effect. And he looked at me and it was like, I've never heard of that. And so I went to his handy dandy little book, electronic, and looked it up and was like, nope, not listed as one of the side effects either. And I'm like, well, I guess I just found you a new one. What can I tell you? That's the side effect it seems to have had on me. Total opposite of everybody else, but that's what it did. So Saturday, when we go over, tips and tools to get along with your ADHD brain, because everything that I've read says that if you can learn to think about it as a superpower rather than a mental issue, that it's going to be easier for you to work with it. It's like carrying that neurodivergent label proudly, right? So we're not going to be talking about any medications, any drugs, RXs, okay, a prescribed medication on Saturday. We're just going to be talking about those things that we can do for ourselves. And I think you're going to be surprised, or maybe you won't, how many of these things are things we've already talked about. Calming your nervous system down, quieting your mind. Is this sounding familiar? Because it should. Because a lot of what I'm going to mention that is out there and is being, offered up for people with ADHD brains, very similar for what they're doing for people with trauma brains. And again, if you're telling me that the non-medication solutions are pretty much the same for ADHD and trauma, you have a hard time turning around and telling me that there's no link between the two. You have a really hard time convincing me of that. When you've got people like Shannon and I who, by all accounts, have only ever had these things as an adult with a preceding adult trauma. So this definitely is a subject as the years go by that I want to revisit, because I want to see how the mental health community, how the psychologists are looking at adult onset ADHD, and if they're seeing it as a real thing, and also seeing about this trauma ADHD connection as to whether or not there's an eventual causal link between the two, or at least if not a one-to-one causation, at least significantly increasing your probabilities of it. It just seems to make sense to me. Night, Janet. Have a good dinner. Talk to you later. Glad you stopped by. Crystal said, if there's a crazy side effect that no one gets, I'll get it. That's me. 100%. That's me. Yep. Weirdness. Hug says, taking a breath helps the memory part and trust. It comes back. And if it doesn't, it wasn't meant to for now. Very good way of looking at things. Yeah, I've really tried to look at the things happening in the universe and my part in it, and this concept of the universe will only give you things that you need, not what you want, and it will only give you those things you need when it feels that you can effectively handle them and are ready for it. And you've shown the universe that you're ready for it, by whatever that means, right? And so I've taken a lot of stock in my life and looked at where are my efforts? Where do I want to be next year? Where do my efforts need to be to get me to that goal? Are my efforts directed in that direction? Am I doing all the things that I need to be doing to make sure that that happens? And if I'm not, why not? And that's where I got stuck. I shouldn't say I got stuck. I did get stuck there, because that is where, when I was doing this process, I realized if I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to be doing to get me to where I wanted to go, it was because of these ADHD symptoms or ADHD-like symptoms, whether they're from ADHD or whether they're from CPTSD, I still got them. And they're causing problems with my daily life. And that's an issue, right? It's causing problems with me getting to where I want to be. So I've got to get a handle on my stuff for more than just to have a handle on it and to be able to live a better life, but to get to where I want to go. I have defined goals. I have certain things that I want to see move forward. And there are certain tasks that need to be done before that can happen. And if I'm not, and it's not as if I'm not committed to doing them or to making it happen or to putting in the work. It's just this other stuff that is holding me back, that is not allowing me to do it. And when I look at it and I look at these symptoms of ADHD, and I think about what needs to happen, I'm glad at least that I have this opportunity to look at everything and decide where do I need to put my efforts? And if I can't put my effort there, why not? And what needs to happen to make it better? Shannon, I wish I could answer you in terms of what you're feeling. It's a rough road to be in. And I've been where you are, where you're kind of like that, throwing your hands up in the air going, which way do I turn right now? Where are the answers? Will somebody please just point me in the right direction? And it's tough. It's really, really tough. All the questions you're asking yourself right now. Yeah, exactly. If you aren't journaling, I encourage you to, whether it's writing or whether it's speaking. I think that getting things out and allowing yourself to seriously look at them through the lens of a week or two, and look at it as an overall, look at it like you're removed, like you're reviewing your friend's journal for them. They wanted you to see, this is what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, or this is what I've been feeling for the past 2 weeks. What do you make of this type of thing? And so you're reading it more observationally and see if some answers don't float up from that. It's about the best that I've got you for, except for, seeing your therapist and speaking with them and seeing what they think is what they think should be done from this point forward, or to try and help you. You make a commitment to journal for the next week. Hold me to it. Okay, I will. You heard it, guys. So we're going to check in with her on Saturday and see if she's journaled for the week. Okay. My friend is camping, and he made me promise that I was going to walk to my mailbox and back every day, since my mailbox is not located at my house. It's a little bit of a shuffle to get there. So everyone is your witness, Shannon. You're right. You've got to start doing that writing. And we'll see where you made it to on Saturday, okay? I believe in you. And remember, it can be 15 minutes. You don't have to spend 3 hours writing. And it could be 15 minutes 3 times a day if something, popped into your brain and you thought, oh yeah, I'll just write that down real quick. There's no right or wrong way to journal. So you need more ways to journal or more help with that. Obviously, ask Janet. She's the queen. At least in terms of writers, but I can completely commiserate with you, Shannon. I know exactly what you're dealing with and how you're feeling, and it does suck. It was like Thursday, I think it was Thursday or Friday, when I was so excited about, or no, it was like Sunday. It had to be Sunday, and I was so excited about the views because it was after our live. I was so excited about the views. I was excited about the new subs. And when I looked at it, my first reaction was to jump up and go, woohoo, or something like that. That first little, and then it's like something just went, nope, you don't get to feel that happy. I mean, you can be happy about it, but come on, let's not lose our heads and go celebrating or anything. So, that was really hard. Thankfully, David is my cheerleader, and he just celebrated for me and whooped and hollered and made a big deal out of it, and it was great. So, okay, let's see. Well, we're about at 7:30 here, guys. A little after. My friend's going to be back soon, and we're going to head to dinner here. So I think we're going to start concluding this. Oh, thank you, Shannon. I deserve to celebrate for that. Yes, I do, as do we all, because it's an accomplishment for all of us, because I know that you guys have been talking. I know that you share the message. I know that you share the channel, and all of it's appreciated and it's noticed. And obviously, we're having an impact. Slowly but surely, we are having an impact. And Crystal, I certainly, I did celebrate with David. I wasn't celebrating as joyfully as I would have liked to, because I couldn't make that feeling. Like, I was happy, like I'm happy, but I wasn't like that joyous, woo, oh my God, that I was actually feeling inside. There was this piece inside me that wanted to do that, and no, its doors were locked, and it said, nope, you get this much happiness. You don't get that full joyfulness. So I don't know. Maybe when we hit 250, right? There was always another goal. 250, 300, 500, 1,000. So many more times to celebrate. And guys, I celebrate each and every time a new sub comes on, whether it's just a little small internal celebration or whether it's something that I let you guys know about and we all celebrate together. So definitely we'll be keeping track of the numbers and still sharing everything, sharing this and formal videos with people who you feel need it, if they need to hear the word. we've done a lot of different subjects now, so there's a bunch of different things out there in relation to trauma, both sexual assault and other generalized trauma, things that are that we all have in common, because trauma is trauma is trauma. Dealing with it is pretty much the same, little slight differences depending on the type of trauma that you had and for how long it lasted. But overall, our tips and tricks of the trade of how to deal with it are going to be the same. So that's when I say when CPTSD and ADHD tips and tools look pretty much the same, I think there's going to be a connection there somewhere. I think it'll come out because they're doing more and more and more researching with the brain. And there were some pictures of like a normal brain and then an ADHD brain. Holy camole, the lit up areas on the ADHD brain compared with the regular brain when the person was just at rest. Oh my God, it gave me a whole new appreciation for David just being able to make it through any day. It just, the more I listen to people give their experiences of having ADHD, and especially as an adult, if they had it as a child, and those same symptoms, carry with them, and if there's that hyperactivity piece to it, which hyperactive impulsive ADHD they found is more common in men or in boys, they said, because they related it to ADHD in children. So definitely more common in boys. But I wonder if that's the same for adult men. If adult men kind of took a survey, would they be more falling into the hyperactive versus the inattentive one? Yes, Hugs, there are a zillion topics we could go on for the brain. We've already covered a bunch, but there's still so much more. And the data is changing, all the time as there's new surveys and studies that are put out, and people are questioning old thoughts. We'll see where things go with this. Shannon, thank you so much. Giant hugs to you. I hope you have the best night ever. And thank you to all of you guys, because you do help keep me motivated and keep me on track with making sure that I'm doing the research and that I'm getting the topics out and that we're usually having something other than just current events to talk about, something prepared. It's important to me. And there's just days that I'm just not going to be able to do it. And I've admitted that. And then we've just kind of talked about whatever, and we've made it work. But that wasn't the format that I brought this up in. And I don't think it's the most helpful format for us to move our healing forward. I think the knowledge and the education is extremely important, especially as we've talked with sexual assault. Education is the key, whether it's of the children, whether it's of other parents, whether it's just of adults in general. There's so much educating that needs to happen, and we could drastically affect the number of sexual assaults that occur every year if people just knew what to look for. What do you look for in that date? What do you look for in that babysitter? What do you look for in that family? Kids, what do you look for in the baseball coach? What do you look for in your teacher? What do you look for in your I mean, you name it. These are all things that need to be gone over, and the kids need to understand, and the parents need to know how do I, as a parent, separate somebody just being extremely nice to me from trying to get at my child? Because at first you may not know the difference, and they're counting on that, really. They're counting on you being so overwhelmed and that their help being so helpful that you'll overlook any weird thing that you see or might feel. Or if you hear anything from your child, you might brush it off because, well, that's not the person that I know. Right? So we need to educate everybody. And that education needs to start with ourselves. So I will continually try to have a topic that we can talk about, even if it's just to broach it on a large, kind of overall big eye view. And we can take it from there and see where it leads us. So with that, guys, I think it will do it. I tend to talk on and on and on, and I could probably do the same and get us till 8, but you guys don't need to listen to any rambling like that. I wish you all the best for the rest of your week. I will see you Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern here. Not here. I will be back in my office on Saturday, and we will have a wonderful discussion about what to do about ADHD. How do you manage it without medication? Medication may be an option for some people, but it's not necessarily going to be for everybody or for everybody all the time. Because I do know people who just take the medication they've been giving when they need to focus. So it's kind of like an as needed type of thing. So the other times when they don't need to hyper focus on something, say it's their work or they're studying or something of that nature, the symptoms can still be very distracting and interfere in your daily life if you don't know how to deal with them. So we're going to talk about all of that and hopefully have some good information for some of you. And if anybody has any other tips and tricks, especially if you have diagnosed ADHD and you've been dealing with this for a while, you got any information you want to share with the rest of us, please let me know. Be happy to bring you up on screen if you want to talk to everybody too. You guys just need to let me know. So with that, please always remember, surviving together, we're never alone. You guys have each other. You have me. If you need to email me, please do so. survivingtogethersass@gmail.com. You can please leave a comment afterwards. The algorithm really likes that. And I do read and respond to all of the comments that are left after any of the shows. Also, hit the like button, guys, if you haven't already. I'd really, really appreciate it. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed. You hopefully will get a notification then to my lives. Double check your subscription status and the status of your bell, your notification bell. Sometimes I've noticed that that's switched. I'm still subscribed, but my bell isn't on all. It's on personalized. Don't know why it changed, but I had to make sure and put it back on all. Then I would get notifications again. So having any issues, double check that. Maybe it's an issue, maybe it's not. Hopefully it'll help. Remember, you are strong because you are a survivor. You're worthy, you're valuable, but most of all, you are loved just the way that you are, for who you are. Much love, hugs and love, lots and lots and lots of it going out to all you guys. Ones for anybody who needs them. And I will see you on Saturday. Thanks for being with me, guys.